So there's a right way to go on a calorie deficit, and there's a wrong way to go on a calorie deficit. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact right foods to eat, so that way when you do go on a calorie deficit, you're not losing muscle, you don't feel like you have low energy all the time, but rather you're maintaining the muscle, you're possibly even building muscle in a calorie deficit because you're eating all the right foods. This is called performance-based nutrition. This is pillar 3 of the Uzuri Method, so let's get into it. So first things first, throughout this whole video, I'm going to be talking about the lean diet, and I'm going to be talking about the right diet that you should be on. So lean diets, most people go on these diets in the calorie deficit for their first time. They try to eat as lean as possible so that way they can lose as much fat as possible. And trust me, I've done the same thing when I tried prepping for my bodybuilding show. I went with this lean diet, only eating chicken breast, only eating veggies, bell peppers, maybe a little bit of rice, maybe a little bit of potatoes. And all that ever did was make me feel like crap throughout the whole thing. It felt good throughout the first week, but the weeks following that, energy faded, training sessions took a decline. I wasn't as energized and motivated for the gym, and I wasn't as strong in the gym. And most people feel the same exact way. And it's because when you're going in these lean diets, the fat content inside of the diets are usually so low, and that affects you in 3 different ways. Number 1, it blunts your testosterone. And testosterone, it's not as beneficial when it comes to being able to build crazy amounts of muscle, unless you're like spiking it with like steroids, but build crazy amounts of muscle and lose crazy amounts of fat. But it does affect the intensity and explosivity in the training session. And we talked about how that affects you when it comes to building muscle. And that's the whole thing I'm all about, right? Speed, explosivity, that affects the IGF-1 production. Your muscles build bigger and get stronger, so it affects that. The second thing is it disrupts your gut. Because your gut doesn't have these high nutritious foods you should be having and this high fat content, because you're getting a variety of diets, because you're trying to be so disciplined with these lean meals, eating the chicken breast, and you're not getting that variety your gut needs, it blunts your dopamine levels, your serotonin levels, and your testosterone levels, which are all the driving molecules to make you feel energized, motivated, get up and get after it, train hard in the gym, be excited to train to complete failure. Those are what those molecules those are what those molecules are used for, and you are depleting those systems because you're trying to eat these lean meals. See, that's the problem, is you guys are so focused on trying to lose weight. I want to lose weight, I want to lose weight, I want to lose weight. Let me eat as lean as possible, not understanding that it's also affecting your ability to maintain the muscle. You're not able to train hard. So that's why these lean diets, they're not always so good all the time. Not saying not to cut them out completely, but there's more so of a balancing act, and I'm gonna get in that in later on in the video. But the last thing that it does when you're eating these lean kind of meals is it doesn't allow your body to absorb the nutrients from other foods, stuff like veggies. So you might be eating your veggies, you might be eating your chicken, and you're eating clean, you're eating healthy, right? So why do you still feel like crap throughout the day? Why do you still feel like low energy? I thought if I were to stop eating processed foods and McDonald's foods, and I'm eating these lean meals, that I'm actually supposed to feel better. Well, you're not, because your body isn't actually able to absorb some of the nutrients that you're eating from like veggies and a few different foods. So those are the 3 areas that it's affecting you in. And that's why I say, you should be shifting your focus. This first part of this video is understanding you should be shifting your focus from only eating lean meals to also having these high nutrient meals. Stop focusing so much on fat loss and understand that there are foods out there that help you build muscle and maintain muscle, and those are the foods you should be eating. And focus on building muscle and losing fat, and eating the right foods to get that goal. All right, so problem number 2 that I see is people aren't guaranteeing that they're going to lose fat or gain more muscle, and it's because they're simply not tracking their macros. So you might see progress in a calorie deficit and you're restricting foods, and then all of a sudden you stop making progress, and you're not going to know what to do because you're not tracking your macros. And that's why tracking my macros is so important to me, because it lets me understand why something is working, because I have the data to support it. I kind of sound like a scientist, but I have the data to support it. But also, so I know why it's working. But if I hit a wall, I will also understand and see the problem on why it's not working. And that's why it's so great to be tracking your macros, because it guarantees results. You know exactly how much calories are going in your body, so you know exactly what to do if you're not seeing the results. You just play with the calorie numbers a little bit to start seeing more results. So that's macro tracking. But another thing it's great for is understanding your own body type. Right now, you don't understand your own body type, and instead you're trying to find a diet that works for somebody else, but might not work for you as an individual. So what I'm talking about is people perform better on higher carb diets, lower fat diets, higher fat diets, lower carb diets, or a balanced kind of diet. You have to figure out what works best for yourself. And you're not doing that because you're so focused on trying to find the perfect foods that work for other people, but not you. So what you have to do is test for yourself, and you can only really test for yourself if you're tracking your macros. You'll know exactly how many carbs you're eating, exactly how many fats you're eating. And then if it's not working, if you feel like crap during your calorie deficit, change it up. Because a calorie deficit, you're supposed to still have relatively high energy levels, be able to get ready and kill it in the gym. But what I see most often is people lose muscle. They aren't able to train as hard in the gym, and they think that that's how calorie deficits are supposed to feel, when in reality, that's how you're not supposed to be in a calorie deficit. And all that really does is you lose a bunch of muscle on the way and waste all your time. Okay, again, I'm not saying that you should be cutting out the leaner foods completely. I'm saying you got to find the perfect balance for them, because there's pros and cons to eating both. Like, for example, when I'm eating stuff like higher calorie, nutrient dense, it's just filled with all the nutrition your body needs to thrive kind of foods, it's high calorie. So you can't eat it a lot, but it's going to support training and recovery, and just pretty much every function in the body thrives off this kind of diet. So it's all about finding the balance between them. So sometimes it's good to eat the leaner meals. You get full. You're able to eat so much more of them. And sometimes you have to tell yourself, it's okay to sacrifice myself feeling hungry, and be okay with being hungry, because you're sacrificing that for better training sessions and better recovery the next day, because you're getting more quality nutrition. For example, let me just tell you some of what happens when you only eat a lean diet versus a higher fat group diet, which is the lean diet group is lower testosterone baseline, worse gut microbiome over time, lower training drive, less IGF-1 per session, which that's what grows muscle, and more muscle loss despite identical protein intake as if you were eating this. So if these were the same amount of protein intake in a day, you would actually have a harder time retaining muscle with these kind of foods. And again, this is just chicken and a zucchini, I think this is. And then when we talk about the whole food, higher fat group, it's better hormonal environment, serotonin, dopamine, testosterone, better gut health, better training output, more IGF-1, and better muscle retention inside of a deficit. So you're more likely to maintain muscle eating the higher fat group, stuff like ribeyes, the whole egg, not cutting out the egg yolk, higher fat ground beef, whole milk, whole cheese, whole yogurt, and then use that as your foundation, and then adding the more so like the support food groups, maybe like some fruits, maybe like some veggies, and that's when you have that full, complete diet that you need in order for your body to thrive in a deficit and maintain the muscle, and again, possibly even grow muscle if you're using all these 3 different pillars that we've been talking about these past 2 weeks. Again, it's all about balancing these two. So sometimes you do the leaner ones, sometimes you do the higher calorie ones, one day this, one day that, and alternate them. I think that's totally fine. But at the end of the day, you should be making the food choices based on how you feel throughout your whole week. So again, if you're copying somebody else's diet or some random routine you found online, and you're not tapering this foundation to yourself, it's not going to really work for you. Because if you do this one day and then do this one day and this one day, and you alternate them, but you still feel like crap, maybe you should probably be doing this 7 days a week until you start to feel better, and then start going more so towards the leaner meals and letting yourself be fuller for longer and stuff like that. So performance-based nutrition by itself isn't going to do much. It's all about how all these different pillars work together to optimize your body to be able to lose fat as much as possible and build as much possible as you genetically can. A lot of people, they don't actually know their potential because they're not doing all the right things to do it. That's the exact reason why these 3 pillars are in place. The performance-based nutrition, that's what fuels the training. The HIIT style lifting, that's what causes the stimulus to get the body to change as a whole. And then the core 5 is what supercharges your body, so that way your body responds to the nutrition and the training even more. And then when you're doing all these 3 different pillars, that's when you start getting the responses from people where it's like, oh, it feels like this guy is on steroids because the progress that he's making is just so out of this world. But that's exactly how it's supposed to feel like. But most people, they're not implementing the core 5 and maximizing sleep, sunlight, stress management, whole foods, water. They're not doing the HIIT style lifting. They're training in a boring fashion. They're not doing performance-based nutrition, and they're eating too lean when they're not focusing on the right foods to build muscle and lose fat. But when you put all these 3 together, it feels like you're getting steroid-like results because of how fast you start progressing. So that is the end of the video. That's performance-based nutrition. Now, I do want to say it can be very hard sometimes to have all this information thrown at you with no structure with it. So you end up not applying what you learn, meaning no results and no progress. At the end of the day, I do have a coaching program. I am a one-on-one coach. I am here to structure it for you. Make your meals, make your training routine, have it set on a day-by-day basis, so all you have to do is just take massive action. And if you're a person that just needs something to follow and can take action, you're gonna do great in the program. So if you do and are looking for one-on-one coaching and might need that extra accountability as well, click the link below, and that's gonna let you set up a one-on-one call with me where we talk on the phone, we figure out what you're going through, what's holding you back, and come up with a game plan and give you a structure to get over those walls, get over those hurdles, and get you closer to building muscle and losing fat the way you should be. So that's the end of the video. I'll see you in the next pillar.